How to make medallions in Fortnite Creative. For this, you will need multiple devices which include the guard spawner, item spawner, class designer and selector, then other devices to create the powers. If this video helps, please subscribe, like and comment for what tutorials you want next. First, how to make the Season 1 medallions. First up, place down a guard spawner device, then drop the mythic you want into it just like this. Then, copy these settings. Spawn count, 1. Allow infinite spawn, no. Character cosmetic, whatever you want, there's a lot of different skins to choose from. Then guard team, option, team wildlife and creature. Spawn on timer on, spawn timer instant, spawn radius, whatever you want. Starting health, your choice, I've put 150. Then max health, put it as the same as your starting health. Then again, starting shield, whatever you want, I've put it 150 again. Then max shield, same as your starting shield. And lastly, show health bar, yes. Now place down an item granter and drop something unique from the consumables tab into it. I've gone with the rough ore, but you'll have to put different consumables in for each of your different bosses, so just pick any one. Then go into all options and copy these settings. On grant action, keep all. Grant all items. Drop items at player location, never. Then in events, put grant item when receiving from guard spawner on eliminated. Now finally, place down a health power up device and make sure this is out of your map so players can't accidentally pick it up. Then copy these settings. Stat to modify, shield only. Effect, percentage increase. Effect magnitude 3. Infinite effect duration, yes. Show visual effect on player, no. Respawn, no. Ambient audio off. Pickup audio off. Then in functions, put pickup when receiving from item granter on item granted. And that is how you make the Season 1 medallions. Now, how to make all of the Season 2 medallions. First up, Ares. For this, just place down another guard spawner and item granter and copy the settings over, but switch out the consumable for the medallion and the gun for the guard spawner. Now, Ares medallion gives you a damage multiplier for long range weapons, but you can't give damage multipliers for specific weapons in creative, so I'm going to do it for all of your weapons. To do this, all you need is a damage amplifier power up device. Again, place it out of your map so players can't pick it up without killing the boss. But once you've done that, copy these settings. Damage multiplier, whatever you want, but I've done 1.75. Infinite effect duration, yes. Ambient audio off. Pickup audio off. Who can see this power up? None. Then go to functions and put pickup when receiving from item granted to on item granted. And as you can see here, this is Ares medallion working. Next boss is Zeus. Do the same process with the guard spawner and item granted device just like you did with Ares, by swapping the consumable for the item granter and then the gun for the guard spawner and making sure they're linked together in the functions. For Zeus's medallion, it gives you improved sprint speed and higher jump while sprinting. To make this, all you need is a class designer and class selector. First up, place the class selector down and copy these settings. Class to switch to, any class. There's 16 options, I've just done class 1. Restore health and shields on switch off. Volume visible in game off. Visible during game off. Activation audio off. Zone audio off. Display VFX effect on activation off. Then in functions, put change player to class when receiving from item granter 3 on item granted. Now the settings for the class designer. Class identifier, the same as your class selector, so class 1 for me. Allow sprinting on. Sprinting, more options, show. Sprinting jump multiplier 1.5x. Sprinting speed multiplier 2.5x. And that's the settings for it, but you can tweak these if you want, if it's too fast or too slow for you, or you don't jump high enough or something like that. But this is how it looks in game. Next up, Cerberus. Just like the other bosses, copy over the item granter and guard spawner again, but change the consumable and weapon that make sure they're linked up in events. Cerberus's medallion allows you to dash infinitely. So the way to do this in creative is with the movement modulator device and input trigger device. First up, place down your movement modulator device outside of your map so players can't use it. Then copy these settings. Affect movement speed off, apply impulse on, forward impulse 4000, upward impulse 100. These last two impulse settings are up to you, so change them to your liking. Once you've got these settings to something you like, place down an input trigger device and go to all options. Put input type standard action, standard input jump, enabled at game start off. Then go to functions and put enable when receiving from item granter 4 on item granted. And register player when receiving from item granter 4 on item granted. Next up, go to events and put on input released, send event to movement modulator activate. This is how it looks in game. Lastly is Hades. This is one of the more powerful medallions, so I would recommend maybe buffing this boss's health or maybe making it a little harder to access this boss. But for making it, just copy over the guard spawner and item granter over like you've been doing for all the other bosses, and change the consumable in the item granter and the weapon for the guard spawner. Then linking them up again in events. For this medallion though, you will need another class selector and class designer. First, place down the class selector and copy these settings. Class to switch to, any class that isn't the one you use for Zeus, so I've put class 2. Restore health and shields on switch, off. Volume visible in game, off. Visible during game, off. Activation audio, off. Zone audio, off. Display VFX effect on activation, off. Then in functions put change player to class when receiving from item granter 5 on item granted. Now the settings for the class designer is class identifier, the same as your class selector, so mine is class 2. Then health granted on elimination 50.